Hi, everybody. A very good Friday afternoon to you. It's region weather meteorologist Matt Wintz with a look at your update in terms of the system that's moving in. Already starting to feel the wind gusts outside. Temperatures have risen since this morning when they were below freezing. We're now firmly entrenched in the 40s on our way to near 60 degrees later this evening. We do have a severe threat. The Storm Prediction Center has bumped that threat north into the region. That's what we were expecting this morning, to see that threat head north as the latest model guidance kind of brings some of those stronger storms into northwest Indiana later on this evening. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about in detail all the complexities of the system. There's a lot going on with it. And as always, we'll break it down and make it a non-scary thing for you. We'll let you know exactly what we're going to go through, because this isn't the apocalypse. It's just a very, very strong fall time storm. Almost winter time, but still fall around here. So we'll let a couple of people join here on not just our Facebook page, but our YouTube page. We'll run our intro and then we'll come back with some maps and we'll get into the details. As always, you guys can ask questions. We'll answer those towards the end and we'll get you on your way here on this Friday afternoon. All right, welcome into Region Weather Live, everybody. I want to say hi to everyone joining us already. Jackie, Vicky, Chrissy, long time no see, I know. Rhonda, Vicky, hello. Terry and Tina, thanks for joining us here today. Hope everyone's doing all right. It has been a while since we've done one of these. We haven't really had active weather, number one. Number two, the last 2 weeks I've been on the morning show, so I'm getting up at 1 a.m. I'm going to bed, trying to take a nap and maintain the kids during the day. So we are now officially off that schedule. I'm off today. It's great, so we can kind of focus on this. And we really haven't had active weather. We haven't had a need. I don't like to bother you unless there's active weather, and we certainly have that today. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to get into it. We've got a new little spot to put my face down here in the corner, so it's out of the way of the maps. I love that. So we can certainly get to the maps, and you don't have to have my mug in the way there. So here's the setup today, everybody. We've got a real decent shot at a tornado outbreak, not necessarily locally, but across the Tennessee Valley, stretching all the way down towards Louisiana. You can see what you're looking at here. This is the risk put out by the Storm Prediction Center. The moderate risk, the red shaded area, that would be a 4 out of 5 if we had a severe scale. That's where we're expecting the bulk of the severe weather to be. The enhanced, that orange area, is a 3 out of 5. Notice that touches areas like Indianapolis, up towards the Lafayette region, and then over towards Champaign. And then for us, they've bumped this up. We expected this morning. If you followed our update on regionweather.com this morning, I said I would not be surprised if the Storm Prediction Center raised that risk for us locally, because we were not in the slight category earlier. And now we are. And what's that mean? It just means that severe weather is a good possibility. And this arrives again late this evening on into the overnight. Now, the Storm Prediction Center, if you're not familiar with this map, they'll also break down the risk in terms of what types of severe weather you can expect. And again, this is just a prediction. I've seen Storm Prediction Center. I think they do a great job overall, but I've seen them be really off sometimes, right? They'll forecast a big risk and we end up getting more tornadoes outside that area. I mean, that's just weather for you, right? We try to predict the future and it doesn't always, happen according to plan. But the setups there in that moderate risk area is definitely where that highest risk is in terms of the severe potential. So they break it down by category. This is your tornado risk, and this is really, really high. When you see the red area, that's a 15% chance of a tornado within, I believe, it's not 50 miles. I think it's like 30 miles, something like that. Bottom line, you have a real good chance of a tornado down in areas of Tennessee, Missouri. But notice even up here into the region, we're talking a 5% risk of a tornado within the area. I know that seems really low, but that's actually pretty high. And the reason why is because we can measure what's going on up inside the clouds. Thunderstorms don't always bring you tornadoes, right? But when you have a lot of shear, and that's what we have today, when you have that in play and you have thunderstorms that develop into that, that's where you can get some of those rotating thunderstorms that we look for to produce tornadoes. So the shear that we're dealing with today, there's two types of shear. There's directional and there's speed shear. Directional is when the wind at the surface, here where we are, is coming from one direction. and you go up in the cloud and it's coming from another direction. That's called directional shear. When you have a storm that raises up into that, right? Clouds are growing up into that, and you have the wind switching direction within that cloud, that can help that thunderstorm to rotate. The other shear that we don't talk about, and we have that, the other shear we don't talk about often, it's not as sexy, is the speed shear. Basically, you have wind here at the surface. Let's say it's at 30 miles per hour, right? It's gusty. As you get up into the cloud, it could be 120 miles per hour. That's called speed shear. So what that does is that thunderstorms builds up into it. It takes the top and it blows it out quicker, which means that storm continued to produce that updraft without collapsing on itself. And we've got both present across a large chunk of the Tennessee Valley and up into the Ohio Valley, and even in our area as well. So that's the concern, is that storms that develop later on today, and especially tonight, like this evening, and we'll go through the timeline and all that. But the thinking on that is that those storms have the potential to rotate, and some of these rotating thunderstorms have the potential to produce tornadoes. So that's kind of taking you through what these maps mean. And you can see there's a pretty large section of the country that's going to be dealing with a tornado threat here. Now, in terms of wind damage, here's what they're saying in terms of the wind damage potential. Pretty good shot at some damaging winds within these storms, and I would tend to agree with that. I think that's going to be our primary risk, is going to be the damaging winds, because our jet stream up above us is going to be 100-mile-per-hour plus winds rolling up where the clouds are, right? 30,000 plus feet under. That's going to be able to be tapped into with some of these thunderstorms. They can go up with the updrafts and downdrafts, take that strong wind and bring it down to the surface. So that's where we get our damaging wind threat from. And then in terms of hail, it doesn't have much of a threat on us. But I wouldn't be surprised if we had a little bit of hail with some of the thunderstorms that are moving in now from Illinois. So that's our threat. I'm going to close that window out, and we're going to talk radar right now. So this is what we're dealing with live, and over the last couple hours. Here's your loop. You can see what we have developing in areas of Illinois right now. There's some pretty decent thunderstorms. There's some lightning out of these. These are elevated. This is actually along the warm front. So what do I mean by elevated? They're not rooted to the surface. So the tornado threat's very low with those. But the one thing that I think we have a risk from with those thunderstorms is hail. I checked some of the latest OBS out of the Champaign area, and there are some hail producing, some hailstones being produced within some of these thunderstorms. And this is going to be what we deal with here in Northwest Indiana, probably in the next hour and a half or so, as these continue to move off towards the north and east. So keep that in mind. We may have some hail with some of these storms. We'll have some rumbles of thunder here in the next hour and a half. But this, to me, is not the big severe threat. I think the bigger severe threat lies a little bit later on this evening. We got to get the warm front through here. We have to get our dew points up, because right now, I mean, it's 45 degrees. It's becoming windy out of the southeast, but we're not quite ready for severe weather with that 45-degree temperature. So that's what we can expect here. This is the warm front. It'll be an initial hit of some downpours. Again, small hail, I don't think is out of the question with that. We'll have some thunder and lightning. It'll be elevated, which is up in the clouds, and some decent downpours here this evening. Once that moves through, things change. So look back towards Kansas. You see this push as this low pressure gets going. That push of energy, if you're a radar watcher, this is going to be what I'm going to be watching later on this evening, is what happens here in Kansas and Oklahoma. Those storms that develop there are going to be the ones that I think bring us our severe potential later on. It's not the stuff in Illinois. It's the stuff back towards Kansas that hasn't developed yet, because then we'll be firmly entrenched in the warm sector of the system. So it'll be a little bit muggier out, right? I know it's December. It happens. Not often, but it happens. And then these storms will come in. We'll have the shear present and all that. And those are the storms that we'll be watching. They haven't quite developed yet. You see this kind of just broad shade of green as you get up towards Nebraska, areas of Minnesota, up towards the North Woods in Wisconsin. That's all snow, and it's coming down real good. A lot of people, I get it. It's before Christmas. We want the snow. A lot of people asking, where's the snow? Well, it's north of here. It's up in areas of Wisconsin and Minnesota where they're going to get a general 3 to 6 in spots, but other areas are going to see upwards of a foot, depending on where this rain develops and where it turns into the snow off towards the north. But they're going to get a decent snowstorm out of this. The other component that you can't see on this radar is the wind. The wind is really howling outside, and it'll really ramp up over the next couple days across this entire area. Not next couple days, next couple hours, as this low pressure. So we're really going to see the wind pick up, not just where it's snowing, but on the front end of it as well. Here low, I just want to talk wind real quick. This evening, it's going to get a little bit gustier. We'll likely have gusts 30, 35 at times. The wind to me is not a huge deal this evening. Where I think the wind really picks up is going to be on the backside of the system when the cold air is coming in. And that's going to be tomorrow morning, I would say, gosh, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. We could have gusts over 50 at times on the backside of the system. So windy, we'll have some strong gusts here this evening, but the biggest wind out of this for us locally, I think, is going to be tomorrow morning. All right. All right. So let's jump into the forecast portion of this. Everything I've said so far is in terms of where the rain is now, what the Storms Prediction Center is saying. So let's give you our forecast. I'm going to run off the College of DuPage website. I use WeatherBell. A lot of you ask what I use to forecast. I use a lot of WeatherBell maps, but for simple ease where everything's kind of in one place and there's not complicated maps on there, I'm going to use this. And I'm going to take you through, I comb through the models. I think the NamNest is a little bit, the NamNest models are a little bit off in terms of the timing of the storms and the convective activity with it. So I'm going to use the HRRR. I think it's got a pretty good handle on what we've got coming our way. And then we'll go from there. We'll kind of analyze it together. So this, what I'm showing you is the radar. This is what the computer models are predicting the radar is going to look like. There are things, again, with these that meteorologists can agree with or not with, but again, we'll take you through what I think looks right. So you can see that leading edge right here heading in. That's the activity that's back in Illinois now. It's got a good handle on that. And again, I think that's where our risk for some hail is, with some thunder and lightning. And this is over the next couple hours as we go throughout the evening rush hour. I don't think there's going to be any fear with this, though. Everything, as I mentioned, is going to be elevated. So some action earlier on this evening. Then watch what gets going. You see back towards that stuff coming out of Kansas is now in Missouri later on this evening. This is now up to around 7 o'clock tonight. And you can see this line of storms that develops in western Illinois. Other storms firing down to the south, areas of Missouri. These will likely be supercellular in nature, so they'll be rotating. Thunderstorms rotate all the time. It's nothing to be crazy about. But the fact is we'll have an atmosphere that's conducive to producing tornadic activity. So the fact that these are rotating, they'll probably be producing tornadoes as they continue to roll east. Now, don't pay attention to exactly where the model has these storms. Know the general vicinity. We're going to have some storms in western Illinois and Missouri. They'll likely be supercells. We'll likely see tornado warnings with them. Okay, that's 7, 8 o'clock now at night. So here we go. Here's the problem. Our warm front is now through, right? It went through evening rush hour. We're now up to about the 10 o'clock hour, and we've warmed things up. I'll show you in just a second. Temperatures are going to spike. We're going to go from the 40s now. We're going to get up into the 60s as this low grabs that Gulf of Mexico moisture, brings it northward. And we're going to have dew points, which measure how muggy it feels outside. We're going to have dew points approaching 60, which is very good for severe weather. You need them to be usually 60 or higher. So all of our ingredients will be in place as these storms move in to maintain their severe status as they move in, right? So it's just a matter of where are they? Do they miss us? Do they do the Northwest Indiana split where some go north, some go south, they fade? You know, that happens, right? We've been through many events where that's happened. The HRRR model brings some pretty decent thunderstorms through Chicago. Those will likely have warnings on them if that's the case. You look downstate, down towards Indianapolis, dealing with some big storms as well. Meanwhile, real heavy snow is outbreaking across areas of Wisconsin, northern Michigan. I mean, they're just going to get blasted up there. They've got wind as well. But thankfully, we're on the warm side of this. But, you know, with the severe weather threat, maybe not so thankfully. But you can see as we go through time, these storms move through the 9, 10, 11 o'clock, and midnight hour. That's my window that I'm going to be watching, and the window we should be watching as well. And then they're out of here. That's it. Our severe threat moves east. So we've got a good 4 or 5 hour window that we're going to have to keep an eye on some of these storms. And again, it's late this evening. I don't think it has anything to do with the storms that occur during the evening rush hour, 5, 6 o'clock or so. I think it'll be the evening storms, and then it's out of here. The snow misses us. The system's going northeast. It's not coming at us. It's going the opposite direction because that trough is out west, so it's swinging along it. So we're not going to see much snow from it. A couple of the things I want to show you here. If we can look at some of the severe parameters in terms of this, and one of the things we look at is CAPE. If you haven't heard CAPE or you haven't been with me long enough, I like to teach these things, right? So CAPE is convective available potential energy. I know it's a big word. Basically, it means, I call it the juju in the atmosphere, or the energy in the atmosphere. This time of year, it's really hard to get high CAPE. We don't have a high sun angle. The sun angle is very low, so it's tough to heat up the ground, right? And storms rely on heat and rising air. So you often have to get it this time of year from the low pressure itself. This low is very strong. So I don't think CAPE is going to be an issue to overcome, as it is with some severe weather events. I think because this low is so strong, all that air is rising up into a very strong area of low pressure, I don't think it's going to be a problem. But just for kicks, you can see this is the model's depiction of where that energy is in the atmosphere to produce severe weather. And you can see it comes up into our area. We won't have a problem later on this evening when all those parameters go up, the temperature, the dew point, producing that severe weather. And you can see how quickly it heads out. There's no risk of severe weather once this line clears us later on this evening. Significant tornado parameters, kind of interesting as well. This is a big algorithm that puts together a bunch of numbers that show where significant tornadoes can be. And you can see there's not much going on now, right? It's quiet, but watch what happens. Everything kind of builds over the next couple hours. And there you go. That's the Missouri area. And then you can see we get a little ribbon up here. You don't need this to be high to produce tornadoes, but a lot of the parameters in here would produce stronger tornadoes or so. And you can see we do have a risk. Anytime you get any of the colors on you, you have a risk. And again, that will quickly move east as well. The other thing is the lightning. This is a newer product, and it tries to predict where the lightning density is within these storms. And we're going to have some pretty decent lightning. You can see this is that first band pushing through. There's a chance of some lightning. As I mentioned, there's already lightning and thunder in Illinois. And again, over the next couple hours, we could see some lightning and hear some thunder. But it's really this evening with these storms that we're going to have pretty decent lightning strike count down towards the south. It is picking some up with that Chicago convection that moves through, so we could see some decent lightning with those as well. And any storms that come through will have the potential to produce some lightning with them. All right, last thing I want to show you, this probably applies to most of us a little bit more than convective available potential energy. So we're going to wrap this up after this. I'd be happy to answer your questions, and then we'll get you on your way. We'll probably have another update later on tonight, I would assume. So this isn't going to be the last that you see of me, but at least for now. But in terms of temperatures, right, we started this morning, if you saw our posts on our website about the freezing fog, a lot of you woke up to that, especially away from the lake. We've gone from that to now we're in the 40s. This is where we are right now. Look at this low pressure out towards the west. Look at the isobars. I mean, this thing is a monster. It's taken up almost the entire eastern half of the country right now. It's crazy. But look what happens as we go through time. So this evening we go from mid 40s, we'll get into the 50s, and then as that low approaches, this is where our severe weather threat is. We're going to bump our temperatures up into the 60s. I think we could tag 64, maybe 65, and this is 9, 10, 11 o'clock mid when we're going to see these warm temperatures. So you're going to go outside, you're going to hear the wind howling. We'll likely back in storms on moving in, and it's going to be in the 60s outside this evening. But look how quickly things change, right? What Mother Nature giveth, she taketh away. So as we get into the morning hours, we'll go from the 50s down to the 40s, down to the 30s tomorrow, and eventually down into perhaps upper 20s in spots. So we don't get a real big cold hit from this because it's not coming in from the northwest. It's coming in from the southwest. So the pattern behind this in terms of temperatures really isn't going to be that cold. It's going to be colder. But by December standards, we've got a very warm week out ahead of us next week. Again, before that potential pattern flip as we get into Christmas, we're still keeping an eye on that. Dew points, I mentioned that. I want to show dew points, and I want to talk wind, and then we'll get to your questions here. So here are dew points. Just for lack of a better explanation, you need it to be in the green to have severe weather. And we're not there now, right? The air is still very dry. It's kind of wintry outside. But as we get into the evening hours, look at that spike in dew points. We get up into the 60s. Those are some summertime dew points. So this is literally a Gulf of Mexico air mass that's being transported via the wind and the jet stream all the way up into the region. So that's where a severe weather threat comes from. So when you go outside later tonight, safely between storms, it's going to be in the 60s. We're going to have dew points in the 60s, which means it's going to feel and probably smell like summer outside. Seriously. And if you were to go for a quick run, you'd get sweaty running. I just love the weather because storm systems like this can do that. They can make things weird, right? And that's exactly what we're going to have tonight. And then real dry air comes in tomorrow. You're going to need the run dehumidifier once again because there's going to be virtually no moisture in the atmosphere. Crazy. And then our last thing I want to check is the wind. Remember, I mentioned tonight's going to be windy, but my real concern's tomorrow morning. We'll see what this model run has. There's your wind gusts as these storms move through. We'll have gusts 30, maybe 40 in some of the storms. Remember, they're able to tap into that jet stream energy. And then eventually that moves out. We kind of calm down for a couple hours after the storms move through. And yeah, there you go. This is tomorrow morning. This is 4, 5, 6 o'clock. We've got gusts over 40 on the backside of that system. This is that colder air rushing in. And then that really ramps up over towards Michigan and Ohio. They could have gusts over 60 at times. But our winds will slowly decline as we go throughout the day tomorrow. So by tomorrow evening, it's like nothing happened. And we'll be back to a pretty tranquil pattern to start next week. So that's what we're dealing with. Let's get to, I'll leave it on the satellite or the radar. Keep a look at that. And then I'd love to answer your questions. So let's go ahead and get to it while I get this set up here. I hope everyone's doing okay today. It is Friday. It is the weekend. So we made it that far. That's good. We just got a little active weather to get through here this evening, but we will for sure. If things get rough, we'll go live on here. We'll keep everyone safe through the storm action here. And hopefully we get nothing. I mean, I hope we get a couple rumbles of thunder. There's nothing severe with it. I mean, that would be ideal, right? Let's get out of this without anything. So there's your current radar right now. And you can see the heavy rain moving in. We're about probably 45 minutes to an hour. Depends on the region, west to east, from getting some heavy rain, some thunder and lightning. But remember, I don't see a severe threat with this. This is the warm front. This is what's going to get us our severe threat later. Okay. All right. Let me jump in on your comments here. I missed quite a few. So I'm going to start at the end here. Julie starts by asking, if you go live tonight, let me see. Will you push it to YouTube? I get best notifications from you there and they are real time. Julie, absolutely. Yeah, I always go live to YouTube and on Facebook. That's where we are right now with both. We're live streaming on both. That's what I love about YouTube as well. With Facebook, I've run into problems. That's why I do a lot of stuff on the webpage. It picks and chooses what you see in your news feed, right? And that's not good if you have severe weather. It's just not, right? Because you'll see something 2 days later that says tornado warning. You're like, what? So yeah, so we'll push live to both YouTube and to Facebook, but I appreciate that. Guys, if you're not connected with our YouTube page, we don't do much other than go live with it yet. Trust me, that's going to be a growing brand for us. I know a lot of people obviously have been on YouTube for a long time, but I just like the fact, as Julie mentioned, it alerts you right away and it's real time versus later on or whenever it feels like it. The Facebook page, if you follow us on there, you can sign up for alerts on there. If you go into settings, I think it automatically alerts you when we go live as well. I know I do a double check here at home. So that's just the importance. And again, I don't do for hits or likes or follows or anything like that. I do to keep you safe. Like I want you to have real-time information when it's coming in, not from a weather app, all right, from an actual meteorologist. And again, my roots go back to the region in Northwest Indiana, and I care about all of you. Obviously, we've developed this family mentality over the last 6 or 7 years. So I just want to make sure you have alerts and all that stuff ready to go. Okay. Tina, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Max is always such a weather guru. Max, love you, buddy. He says, this is why I love meteorology. Lots of science. For sure. It's fun. And I don't know who I was talking to a couple of weeks ago, just about, I know a lot of people have, dogs or animals or kids that get scared during severe weather. I've got 3 kiddos of my own that are 5, 3, and 1. So I get that age. But it's so important to not make weather scary to them, because weather's not scary. Every time you see something on TV about the weather, it's like destruction and chaos. And it's like, yeah, that is scary, but that's not what happens with weather 99% of the time, right? So what I like to teach the kids, if you haven't heard me teach this on a Facebook Live before, is that, doctors and even us, as people, know the parts of our body, right? We know where our heart is. We know where our nose is, our ears, stuff like that. Meteorologists know the different parts of storms, right? So we can dissect a storm. We can see where the winds are spinning, where it's going. We can detect tornadoes in advance usually. Technology's gotten very good. And on the meteorological side, which I'm on, right? My job is to inform you of that. And I can dissect a radar and tell you exactly where that stuff is. So as long as you're in tune with a meteorologist or some kind of live form, I don't care if it's me, it can be your local TV station, whatever it happens to be. As long as you're in tune with them and they have you covered, right? Chicago stations don't always cover Northwest Indiana, thus region weather. But as long as you're in tune with them, they'll keep you safe, right? So there's nothing scary about it. It's super fascinating. Again, we know what's going on up inside the clouds. We understand it. It's just a matter of, making sure you're connected with that for sure. Rhonda says, I'm glad you'll be keeping us well informed as storms come through tonight. Just gave my pup some calming medicine. Rhonda, yeah, you're one of those with the pups. For sure. I hope there's not a lot of thunder and lightning with this. I have a fear that there might be, especially with that second round. We're going to have lots of juju in the atmosphere. So I do think we get some thunder and lightning. So probably a good idea to give your pup some of that calming medicine that you've got. The thunder suits or the thunder, whatever those things are called, are good as well. I've heard a lot of good. Just jumping on and looking for info. You probably already said in the beginning, Tessa, that's okay. If you have any specific questions, go ahead and ask any of you. Stacy just joined. That's okay. So Crown Point, all of the that's a good question, Stacy. I did not cover that earlier. All of the region is under an equal threat for severe weather later on tonight. I think the best threat, if I had to say, would be Lake and Newton counties, right? The further south and west you are. But I still think LaPorte and Stark counties have an equal risk as this moves through. It's not a terribly high risk for severe weather, but the potential's there for some of these storms to rotate as they move in. I think it's going to be what we usually see, where a lot of action is out towards the west, and then hopefully we're going to be like playing the fine line of, does it fade as it moves in, or does it maintain its strength? But basically, in terms of timeline for us here in Northwest Indiana, I would start to pay attention. We're going to get a round of thunder and lightning and maybe some hail here shortly, with some heavier rain that's moving. And that's the warm front. I don't see a severe threat with that. The timeline for the severe stuff's going to be, I would start paying attention around probably 7:38. And then that will carry through midnight or 1. It all depends. It's not going to be that entire time filled with severe weather. It's just the stuff hasn't developed yet. It's back in Kansas, the energy is. And once that explodes, we'll track that in. So we'll start to kind of be weather aware around 8 o'clock. And again, I'll be doing the same thing. Okay. Diane, I hope that answers your question as well. Same thing for you. Lisa, you're welcome. Absolutely. Jordan, great advice. Firefighter here. Please secure items in your yard, and if the power lines go down, do not go near them. Great advice, Jordan. Yeah, I think that's a big thing with our last wind event that we hit on. With this wind event as well, there's going to be sustained winds outside of the thunderstorm, that especially during the overnight and early morning hours. Yeah, we've got wonderful holiday decorations up right now, right? So might want to make sure they're staked down or tied down. My wife put out these little Christmas trees by our door that she kind of tied down to the wood there. And I just suggested, just bring them in, honey. Those trees are going to be in the neighbor's yard by tomorrow, for sure. Jason says, it's scary when you have a forest on the west side of your house and the wind is coming from the west. Good news, Jason. I think what would be scary is if we still had leaves on the trees. The trees have lost a lot of weight, right, when they've dropped those leaves. That's the great news. So it's pretty much branches. I totally get it, especially if you got that forest next to your house. We haven't had a real strong wind event in a while, so we likely are to see perhaps some pockets of wind damage and power outages. But at least we've lost the leaves, because those trees, tall trees, remember, they have been standing for a long time, years, 50, 100 years. And they've gone through a lot of windstorms. So these trees can really put up with a lot more than I think we give them credit for. But if they had the leaves on there, that would be a different story. Okay, let me see. Anything else? Terry, you're welcome. Thank you for your kind words. Absolutely. I appreciate that. Diana answered you. Stacy says, thank you. You're welcome. I'll go back a little bit further. Then we'll get you on your way here this afternoon. Let's see. Mike saying Mike is my it's never supposed to be this way kind of guy, which is great. Love you, Mike. This is supposed to be December, not March. It's happening more often than it used to. Yeah, there, Mike, you're absolutely right. And you've never gotten pushback from me. I want to make that clear. That yes, we have a much warmer pattern. What has changed, I think, over the last 5 or 10 years is that, at least, record wise, all that stuff, we've had severe weather events in December before. Trust me, I can go back and produce the data on it. Are they rare? Yes. But do they happen? Absolutely. We've had Christmases in the 60s and 70s before. In the 40s, the 1940s, we had some warm weather during December. But what I've seen as a meteorologist, I'm now 16 years in the business. What I've seen is that our November and December, they've been more mild, and winter has almost shifted to like a January, February, March. I feel like winter's hanging on longer now, but it's starting later. And that's not always going to be the case. I mean, we can take these 5 to 10 year snippets and say, wow, things have really changed. But you can do that for any era going back to the 1890s, where you say, wow, this is much different than the 5 or 10 years before that. So just keep that in mind, right? Yeah, things have warmed, right? November, December, we haven't had any snow yet. I mean, practically no snow. We've had a little lake effect, right? But if you look at the lower 48 in general, we've got more snow on the ground this year than last year. The last 5 years, we've had a couple records in terms of North American snowfall on the ground in fall. So Canada's been getting hit hard from this. Hey, am I back with you guys? So here's the deal. My computer died. I didn't have it plugged into a charger.
on my phone. Anyway, thanks for joining us. What I'm going to do, I'm going to charge things up here for this evening. Make sure you charge your cell phones as well. Might be a good idea, right? And we'll join you later on this evening. Again, time frame for everything, guys, is going to be once we hit 7:30, 8 o'clock Central Time. That's when we're going to want to start to pay attention. Okay, and we'll be with you then. We'll track everything as we go throughout the evening. Okay. Thanks for staring. Yeah. Hi, Terry. Thanks for getting through my frozen category. I didn't know how to, I can't start my computer, so I don't know how to end the broadcast, but we figured it out. So thank you very much. We'll join you a little bit later. Okay. Bye, guys.